We want to begin by reminding you that your work is to calibrate to your desire, which means your work is to think thoughts that harmonize with your desires. Your work isn't to just evaluate what is and give a report about it. And yet the majority of what you sent is sort of kind of like that. It's like a statement of what is, sometimes in a complaining attitude, often in a pleading attitude, often in a, how can I get into a different place? And of course we understand all of that. But we want to emphasize with you right here at the beginning of these conversations that the work that you have to figure out a way to do is the work of creating rather than reacting, thinking rather than responding, deciding rather than merely noticing. And mostly, it's about reporting from the upper half of the emotional scale rather than from the lower half of the emotional scale. Now we know, especially for those of you who are new to these conversations, but to all of you really, we know that when something happens, you want to talk about it. But we want you to think about whether you really want to continue trending about things unwanted. Somehow, at some point, you've just got to come to the realization of what your inner being has been revealing to you for a very long time. That you have choices in the way you react, but that your reaction is more about the things that you're deciding to do even before the opportunity to react comes. In other words, feel the power in making a statement and really meaning it. A statement such as this: I'm going to become better at thinking about the things that are important to me, instead of reacting to the things as they seem to be and then trying to figure out how to get around that. Feel the power in deciding, I'm going to get out ahead of what's going to come to me today by intending that I'm going to have a wonderful day. I'm going to prepave my day by acknowledging that I have choices all day long. And there are people that when I talk with them, I complain more. And there are people that when I talk with them, I complain less. I'm going to talk to more of the people that I complain less with. And I'm going to do a better job of complaining less no matter who I'm talking to. In other words, get out ahead of it. Make some decisions. Get hold of this thing that is called you create your own reality. Get hold of it and do it on purpose. Be determined. Think about what determination is. Determination is an attitude of, I am going to get a hold of this. I'm going to make this happen. I can do this. Rather than an attitude of, this is hard, or I don't know what to do, or I'm in a state of confusion. We know that Esther will get some letters that Abraham is delivering a sort of uncomfortable, tough love to us here today. But it really is time that you accept that your point of attraction is attracting. And that if your point of attraction is happening because you're disappointed about something, or worried about something, or afraid of something, then what comes to you in terms of conversations or memories or dreams, what comes to you is coming in response to your continual output, of which you have more control than you are demonstrating to yourself. You're not disappointing us. This isn't a scolding about getting hold of this and doing a better job. This basically is the answer to almost everything that almost all of you were complaining about in this week's submissions. You just can't get to where you want to be by conveying in detail where you are. That gets you nowhere. But we will acknowledge with you that it is a step one moment, that acknowledging where you are is causing you to launch some rockets of desire about what you prefer. You never know more clearly what you want than when you are standing in a situation or thinking about a situation that is not what you want. That comparative process is what helps you to know. But we're just asking you to make a determination, decide to get hold of this. Don't use Abraham as a complaining sounding board. Don't use any of your friends that way either. Don't plead for improvement. Intend improvement. And accept that you are the improver of the improvement. There's not someone or something outside of yourself that you're asking for these favors or these improvements, because you've already done that asking, and that asking has already been given. Source, what you want to call God, your inner being, all of that non-physical, angel and care and love, all of that energy has already responded to your requests. But your pleading is just an indicator that you're in a place where you're not yet letting it in. You got to become more optimistic. You've got to get on the upper half of the emotional scale. And everything that we talk about all day long is about that.
How can I help myself to get to more of the receptive mode? Even though I think it, I know it, I feel it.
Isn't the first thing knowing whether you're there or not?
Yeah.
We talked about this already too, but we really want to amplify it here. It's a wonderful, wonderful question. How can I more deliberately and effectively get into the receptive mode? Here's a very powerful answer. Sometimes you can't, so just give it a break. Sometimes something's happened and you just feel negative emotion, and the harder you try, the worse it gets. The harder you try to solve a problem, the bigger the problem gets. So understanding how you feel is an important component of this. But what we've noticed as we've visited with so many of you since the beginning of your existence is this. It always gets better if you'll just give it a minute. So when you decide to stop the struggle and stop trying so hard to prove your worthiness and stop trying so hard to get it right and start trusting that it's on its way to being the way you want it to be, if you could just settle down a little bit and allow it to be. It's the trying too hard that is tripping you up. And most of that is because you care too much about how you appear to the others around you. You care more about what others think about how you're doing than you do about how you feel in the moment. And so when you let your relationship between your inner being and you be the thing that matters the most, then it's just easier and easier. The reason that we teach meditation, and this is really for you, this statement, it's easier to teach almost everyone to have no thought than to clean up a negative thought. Because you're invested in the negative thought. Law of attraction already brought you a lot of ammunition. Law of attraction has already shored up your negative belief that's working against you, you see. And so if you can just quiet your mind, your vibration will rise, and then you can come at it again. So if you feel like you're in a struggle, take a nap. If you feel like you're in a struggle, take a walk. Do something to break the cycle of attraction if you can. And meditation is the most powerful tool that we know of for that. You're doing extremely well. You're consciously aware of how things are unfolding. We know that you're in a vibrational place where you're consciously aware of how you feel and witnessing what's coming. But you are like so many others. You are doing more of your taking score when you're not where you want to be than when you are where you want to be. And so we just want to make this strong statement to you. In every waking moment, you are either under the influence of your inner being, which means you feel great. Some version of great. You feel frisky or lighthearted or silly or clear-minded or interested in something. It feels really good to be tuned into your inner being. And there are lots of emotions that indicate it, but they all feel really good. When you're under the influence of your inner being, that's how you always feel. Or you could be under the influence of something else. And so if you'll just stop and ask yourself when a strong emotion is within you, especially if it's a strong negative emotion, what influence am I under? And you acknowledge, oh, wait a minute. Don't beat up on yourself because it's just fine. Just acknowledge that when you're under the influence of something other than your inner being, you don't feel so good. And these are the most powerful words that we will ever speak to anyone. These are the words that we want you to take away from this gathering if you feel like it. And always understand that this is the essence of everything that we teach here. Your singular work is to calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source. That's your singular work. Calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source. Is there another way of saying that, Abraham? Yeah. Your singular work is to get happy. Your singular work is to feel good. Because all the other stuff, you've done it without even needing to know that you were doing it. You were born into contrast. Contrast gave you data and information. You filled your vortex full of all kinds of things that you want. Step 1 and step 2 have already happened. Your singular work is to calibrate yourself to the frequency of your source, which means your singular work is to feel as good as you can feel whenever you're focused upon it. But the question that you're asking is, but when I don't feel good, how do I go about that calibration? And we say, that's really what you've got to figure out how to do. Because when you know you're out of sorts and you're determined that you're going to get lined up, usually you make it worse because you're trying too hard. And why? Because you're aware that you're not where you want to be and trying to push where you don't want to be away from you. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Just take it easier. Be nicer to yourself. Do more things that are fun. Get out ahead of it. Meditate every morning. Segment and 10 before you walk into a segment. Acknowledge the positive aspects of your life. Count your blessings. Make lists of positive aspects. Look for reasons to feel good. And if you start early enough in the day before reasons that you don't feel good have shown themselves to you, then you're off on the right foot, so to speak. And then just stay after that until before you know it, you're just feeling good mostly. Not always, not ever always. You're human, here to sift and sort and launch new rockets of desire. Just stop beating up on yourself when you're in step 1. Let it be a step 5 moment. Oh, contrast. One day, Esther was dusting an etagere with all the beautiful things that she and Jerry had collected from all around the world, and the shelf came off. She didn't even understand how the thing was constructed, and the top shelf banged into the second and the third, and everything on the shelf was broken. Jerry's in another room, and he can hear it, and he says, stand still, because he knows Esther has no shoes on. So she stands, and there are shards of glass all over, some of them sticking in the floor, broken everything from the shelf. And Jerry said, oh, good, something to buy. That's all gone. Now what? Now we need stuff to fill that shelf back up. And boy, isn't that a fun thing to do, you see. And so it doesn't matter where you are. The universe is rich with all kinds of things to satisfy and surprise and delight you. Yes?
Yes.
This is a really good time for a segment of refreshment.
Thank you.